Today I'm doing a book review. You saw the title. This is a book review that I don't know if many people are going to enjoy. I've done book reviews in the past with the Heroes of Olympus series. I did a book review of that. And I also did a book review of Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda. And then I did a book review of Love, Simon. Well, not a book review. I did a movie review of Love, Simon after Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda became a movie. This is not going to become a movie. This is a book of poetry about great Greek goddesses. And I found this book at Barnes & Noble and immediately fell in love. Because I'm such a fan of Greek mythology. I had never read Percy Jackson until a few years ago. Well, actually, a couple years ago, not a few. More like, well, when did I start reading it? I think 2017, I got really into Percy Jackson all of a sudden. Because my friend was really into it, and I had heard about Percy Jackson, I just didn't read it. And then I got all the books, like, immediately, and was like, I want to read them all, so I did. I was already interested in Greek mythology. I know way too much now about Greek mythology. But today, I'm going to talk about this poetry book about the great Greek goddesses. This is by Nikita Gill. She has two other books called Fierce Fairy Tales, Poems and Stories to Stir Your Soul, and Wild Embers, Poems of Rebellion, Fire, and Beauty. So this is called Great Goddesses, Life Lessons from Myths and Monsters. So this was made in 2019. That's when it was published, was 2019. So what's happening is, so let me explain these poems. So they're basically poems about Greek goddesses and Greek myths, but it's kind of this retelling and a lot of stories that have been forgotten about these gods and goddesses, because you hear like simple things like Zeus is the god of thunder and everyone knows about Hercules and all of that, but there are certain parts of the tale that get kind of forgotten in history because we only hear one side of the story. And the Greek goddesses are seen as subservient. They follow the Greek gods, that's it. When really, this is telling everyone that the Greek goddesses did a lot more than just serve, you know? And there's some beautiful illustrations in here. Okay, so she did the figure illustration. So she also illustrated. The pattern illustration was done by Emma Fallon, but she also did the figure illustration. So she's great. She's British Indian, and she lives in the south of England. She has multiple social medias, Instagram, Tumblr, Facebook, Twitter. I'm gonna start following her because this was so beautiful. Like, these poems are so gorgeous. Like, honestly, I love poetry and I love spoken word so much. And these just made me love poetry all over again. Because poetry nowadays is so obsessed with, like, the spoken word side of poetry, but this poetry fully shows like the use of rhyming, but also the use of like beautiful images using these words that she has. So let me explain the kinds of poems in here. So what she does is she splits it into 5 sections. So she has this little beginning of each kind of chapter, I guess, and it's a mortal interlude. That's what she calls it. So she talks about, in the first one, she talks about, you know, what's it like being a god? Like, are gods truly immortal? When we lose faith in a god, does it disappear, you know? And the first section is about it's kind of about the primordial gods. So it's about Chaos, Eurynomy, Nyx, Erebus, Gaia, Gaia's lover, Uranus, and the daughters of Nyx. So those are the first 7 poems. And the thing that I love about these poems is that she conjures up this image. Because the ideas of the Greek gods are this kind of... The thing is, when creating a god, is the reason they created them was, we don't have a way to explain this stuff. okay, back in the day, they didn't have the science to explain, like, why does the sky look like that? Why does day turn into night? So they conjure up these images, these gods. And so gods are technically man-made creations. Which I think is a beautiful thing to talk about if you're interested in religion, because God didn't exist before us. I believe we existed and we came up with this story of God. Because we were like, how do we explain all this shit? Oh, gods, you know? We don't have the science, let's just say gods today. So there's a god of everything and anything in Greek mythology. There is a god in every single way. There is a god of everything. And so chaos. So I don't want to go through each and every poem, but the first section is about the Primordial Gods. So that's about, you know, the people that created the universe, the earth, the sky, the night, darkness, those kind of concepts. And then we talk about Gaia and Uranus and their children and the Titans. So that's the second section, is about the Titans. And the Titans are, I think some people only know about a few of the Titans. And I don't mean Teen Titans, you know. There are certain people that only know about, well, isn't it the elements? And I'm like, you're wrong, but you're right, but you're also wrong. Because the Titans are Gaia and Uranus' children. And they are beautiful. And then Gaia gives birth to the Cyclops and the Hecatonchirus, which is a creature that has, I don't remember how many heads, but like 100 hands. Uranus threw them into Tartarus because they weren't beautiful enough. Which is really sad. The thing is with these goddesses, it's this retelling of the goddesses' stories, because a lot of those stories have been controlled by showing the male presence and saying, man is hero, but then you find out Zeus is an abusive, rapist son of a bitch. He's a horrible husband. Apollo is one of the nicest gods. Hephaestus is sweet. Aries has so much anger inside of him he can't control it, because he's the actual child of Zeus and Hera. He is a child of anger and arguments and screaming. No wonder that's the god of war. No wonder Aries is the god of war, considering how much Zeus and Hera fought. So then, at the end of that chapter, it talks about the Titan War, which was a 10,000 year war between Titans and the 12 Olympians, which includes Zeus, Aries, Apollo, Artemis, Aphrodite, and then some other people here and there. And then there's the third one, which is about the gods that we all know and love. And there's multiple poems about multiple gods. So the first couple of poems are about Zeus, then they talk about Hera, Athena, Aries, and then she does this beautiful thing, because gods are immortal, right? The Greek gods are seen as immortal. She puts them in this modern setting, which shows what they would really be like. So Aries is, you know, a drunk, he's filled with depression and anger, and he can't do anything about it. And he's one of the gods that gets prayed to the most. And Aphrodite, who was Aries' lover, is kind of like, why are you so sad? And he's like, I don't want people to fight anymore. I'm sick of war. And the only person who could soothe him was the muse Calliope, the muse of poetry. And I'm like, aw, that's a cute story. It talks about, you know, Hera after Zeus. You know, Hera was abused, basically, and Hera leaves Olympus and makes this center, this community for women that have been abused, and tries to help them. Zeus is a rapist, and he should die. He finally gets sent to jail. Athena, I can't remember what Athena does specifically. Aphrodite becomes friends with a lot of women that have been rejected by love. And she's kind of like, wow, I forgot that, you know, my powers aren't the best thing in the world. Hephaestus doesn't really have an after. Hephaestus is so sweet and so nice, and he is the most lovable god because he was cast out by his mother. And Hephaestus was, I think one god was part mortal, and I think it was Aries. No, it wasn't Aries. Was it Hephaestus? Who was the child that was born from Zeus's thigh? Dionysus. Never mind. Dionysus was part human and part mortal. So Dionysus has this whole other situation going on. Dionysus goes through hell, and they talk about Hermes, because Hermes is Hermes. If you've read the Percy Jackson books, Uncle Rick does a very good depiction of the Greek gods, but he has to remember, Athena didn't just swear off guys. Athena was a full-on lesbian and had a female lover, and we will not forget it. Apollo's gay until the day is long, because he's, you know, the god of the sunlight of the day. Well, he's not the god of the day. That's someone else. Anyway, it talks about Apollo, Artemis as well, Poseidon. There's quite a few about Poseidon, and it kind of goes from Poseidon into, like, all the other sea gods that are kind of forgotten. Hestia, Demeter, Persephone, and Hades. And honestly, Persephone and Hades, that's the best couple in history. That's literally the best couple ever created. Hades doesn't cheat. Hades is sweet to Persephone. And Persephone, all the time, every time she leaves to go visit her mom, she's like, I want to go home. I want to see my husband. And Hades just loves dogs. Also, okay, so she does this whole section about, like, the monsters, and it's kind of, so she does a story about the monsters, like Medusa and Typhon and the Gorgon, and then the last section is about, it's about the great heroes of poetry, so Helen of Troy, Odysseus, but then she makes a poem about a dog. And that's when I knew I loved this book, because she talks about Odysseus's dog. Odysseus had a dog called Argos. Sorry. In the Odyssey, Odysseus leaves for, like, many years, and Argos is, like, sad, and no one's taking care of Argos because he's a dog, and he was kind of forgotten. And then Odysseus came home, but Odysseus didn't want to be recognized, but he refused to pat his dog on the head, or say good boy, or anything like that. So then the dog dies, and then Hades shows up and is like, I don't like the name Argos. I'm gonna make you Cerberus. So that story is Cerberus. And Cerberus is a good boy. And all Hades cares about, every dog that dies goes to the underworld, but goes on this special island created by Hades for dogs to just live their lives and be happy. And I'm sitting here thinking, why are we being mean to the god of the underworld when he's literally doing the best thing in the world? All he loves is dogs and his wife. All he cares about is dogs and his wife. Okay, that's it. And I'm like, that's the man for me. Is the man that cares about his wife and his dogs. Okay, that's all we need. He just likes dogs. And then there's a glossary talking about all the stories you may not have known about, all these names that keep popping up, and you're kind of like, who the hell is that guy? You know? And then there's also a couple poems about the muses. There's a couple random poems at the end. So it talks about, you know, Prometheus. It talks about Prometheus. And no one talks about Prometheus. Prometheus was a titan who was best friends with Zeus and was going to overthrow Kronos. Now, okay, if you don't know some things, I want to talk about Greek mythology on this channel because I am such a fan of Greek mythology. It could be part of my Zach teaches you shit thing, which I haven't done in a very long time. But I love Greek mythology for two reasons. One, it's gay, and two, it gives this whole idea about creationism and all of these things. So the creation theory for Greeks is very different. There's a goddess called Euronymie, which is a story that has been greatly forgotten, but she's seen as the mother of all things. So she kind of came out of the Big Bang and created the universe and the cosmos, but chaos kind of existed first. Chaos is the universe, but Euronymie was technically Chaos's mother. I think it gets confusing. Anyway, if you're a fan of Greek poetry, if you're a fan of Greek goddesses or gods, if you're a fan of anything Greek, you're gonna like this book. If you like poetry in general, you're gonna like this book, because she has such a way with words that really made me love poetry again. Like, she's so good, and I want to get more of her books because I think she's great. And I haven't read poetry in quite a while, and this just sparked my interest in poetry again. And I think she's an amazing author, and I'm gonna go follow her on like all her social medias. She's great. I wish I could read an excerpt. I don't really have a favorite poem, but I can do this. Okay. That doesn't really work. Let me take it out of the sleeve. Sorry, I'm gonna try and flick through, if that's possible, with a hardback book and pick a poem and then read it. Okay, this is Myths About the Water Dispelled. 1. Poseidon's name means master of waters, but the water already had masters long before Olympian arrogance declared itself the only true godhood. They were the Oceanids, 3,000 goddesses who nurtured coral reefs, planted seaweed on the ocean floor, helped oysters keep their pearls. Cultivating life is long deemed women's work within the ocean. Every fish and mammal and plant we admire is oceanid-born. 2. The water we praise for our existence, the water that is not full of salt, but touches our lips, quenches every thirst, is the blessing of Tethys, Titan goddess of all fresh water, mother to 6,000 gods. If you wonder why Tethys is rarely mentioned, it is because we take our fresh waters for granted and not as an entirely finite source. Flint, Michigan, let me just tell you, we need to start giving them fresh water. Like, we need to start, some kind of billionaire at least, to like give money. 3. Sailors often pray to sea gods, but it is the goddesses by whom they are heard. For Amphitrite had tamed the waters before Poseidon even knew his first word. Brizo guides sailors and fishermen to safety through the storms and their dreams alone. And Doris is the mother of all the bounty any sailor, pirate, or diver ever takes home. That wasn't a great one. That poem, okay, so Poseidon is kind of, A lot of these poems are talking about the myths around Greek mythology as well, because a lot of things have been forgotten. So let me see if I can flick through it again, find another one. War and poetry. This is about Aries. Aries, of warfare, soldiers, tributes. Aries, of carnage, widow-making and eternal cries, the sickening sound of a sword sinking to flesh. Aries, god of terrible things. Aries, of screams, of screams, of screams. It is the mother's prayers that sent her to him. They prayed for clemency, mercy to any softer god listening, and it is Calliope who heard their inconsolable pain. This compassionate goddess of poetry, oldest of the Muse sisters, ascended Olympus to reason with the god of war, even to spar with him if need be. Instead, she found him, clutching his head, unable to stand the carnage within him, teeth clenched, close to screaming. She asked him why he couldn't stop. And he lifted his head, eyes red, and said, "No one told me how to stop the bloodshed, the clash of metal, the battle cries, and all the tragedy and the screaming." So Calliope tenderly took his hands away from his head and whisper to him a soothing story in verse. Calliope alone, who he listened to, who helped him fell each demon in his head and brought peace to the god of war in the earth. To this day, if a conflict ceases, it is thanks to the kindness of Calliope, goddess of epic poetry, bringer of peace, infusing kindness gently steeped with poetry to soothe a tired war god's head. And this is some art in here, so that's Aries and him in armor. Aries is the god of war, but he didn't choose to be. A lot of gods don't choose what they're going to be the god of. You know, they just get handed that. Aries didn't want to be the god of war. He's sick of it, you know, and he's kind of like, I'm the god anyone keeps praying to because war keeps happening. Because in this book it stated that a lot of gods left Olympus, decided, you know, we need to assimilate into the modern world. Because if we don't, we're going to be forgotten. And Aphrodite creates her own dating company, which I find hilarious. Zeus is a dick. Athena, I don't remember what happens to Athena. Let me read one more poem. Let me do one more poem just to get it over with, just to make you guys happy, just to... Okay. The moon goddess. I believe this is about Artemis. Okay. There is something moon-soaked and dawn-flavored about her. Something kissed by the wild and loved by lightning. She, the goddess of storm hunting and wolves and moonlight magic. She, the queen of the forest, of womanhood more brutal than tragic. That was a short one. Some of these are longer than others. Some of them are, 3 or 4 pages long. Some of them are, a couple of paragraphs. It just depends, which is why this book is so good, because when you read poetry, some people can make super long poems and you're kind of like, can this end already? But with her poems, they're really telling a story throughout them, and I think that's one of the most beautiful things she does, is tells a story. And I'm very happy I got this book. I'm very happy I decided to buy it from Barnes & Noble, and I really want you guys to go get this and follow her on social media. Nikita Gill is her name. She has Instagram, Tumblr, Facebook, and Twitter. So yeah, her name is Nikita Gill, Nikitagill. I'm going to go follow her in a few minutes after I finish this video. So yeah, go read this book if you like poetry and if you like Greek stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more book reviews in the future. I want to review more books. The thing is, I need to read more. I can't really do a review of Trials of Apollo because the last book hasn't come out yet. But once the last book comes out in Trials of Apollo, I will definitely be doing a review of that. Problem is, I'm gonna have to reset up those books because of how many there are. Crap. Because they're all, for the Trials of Apollo books, I've gotten all hardback books, so they don't all fit on that shelf. And the 5th book is not going to fit unless I do some rearranging real quick. Comment what books I should do reviews of next. If you want me to do a Trials of Apollo series review after the last book comes out, which I think will be the last book, but I don't know. It will be the 5th book in the series, but I don't know if this is going to be like, he has to make another book. If you want me to do a review of any books that I will read again, if you want me to do individual books, if you want me to do series, hit the notification bell for a new video every Saturday/Sunday. I've been trying to upload more regularly, but school and work gets in the way of things. But, I want you guys to get these videos, because I know some people like watching them, all 4 of you out there. And follow the social media links in the description below. Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, Tumblr, Fandom Blog, Other Blog, Twitter. And I'll see you guys next time. Woo, 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 woo.